They were the heroes from the future. Teenagers protecting the universe from those that would sow the seeds of chaos. Each had unique powers and abilities. And though they often had their differences, they came together to save the day as the Legion of Superheroes. Now, you can be a part of their adventures and learn the history of the future in the Legion Clubhouse.
This week on the Legion Clubhouse, we visit a story long forgotten.
Legion of Superheroes, Volume 3, Number 31. Knights in Shining Armor. Published February 1987. Written by Paul Levitz with art by Greg LaRocque and Mike DeCarlo. Synopsis. Censor Girl reveals her tragic past, while the Legionnaires consider their fallen friends.
An untold adventure. You know, I kind of like this gimmick. I do like these, and we see today even publishers are doing this. Like Marvel has done this a couple of times, and I'm pretty sure Batman, well, Legends of the Dark Knight is a great example of this.
Oh, yeah, Batman does it all the time.
Marvel does it with their 0.5 issues. I don't know if you've read any of those where they're like, hey, here's a story set in between the events of, you know, Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut and Peter Parker quits being Spider-Man or whatever that is. They get those kinds of things. And that's what we get this week with issue 31 of the Legion of Superheroes as we see...
As I like to call it, Adventure Comics number 351.5.
Sure. Let's call it
because
that.
It has to take place after Adventure 351 because Bouncing Boy has returned to active duty. But 352 is the Sun Eater story, which assembles the Fatal Five for the first time and kills Pharaoh Lad.
Mm-hmm.
So it literally has to be in like a lacuna, like the 3 weeks between those two issues.
Yeah. I still hate the design of Princess Projectra. I really just do not like this design at all. Don't like the hair, which is very 80s hair, especially for DC Comics. And I know this is Greg LaRocque and Mike DeCarlo doing the art on this, but this is like hair you find in Swamp Thing, hair you find in a lot of the Vertigo titles. I'm just not a fan of this much hair because the number one reason is, you know, 1,000 years in the future, they've banned chlorofluorocarbons. So there's no way she's got enough Aquanet to get her hair to do that.
Oh, no. Brainiac has actually genetically engineered her hair to do that.
Yeah. Well, I hate it. And then I hate the extra wide. I mean, these are like, what's his name from the Talking Heads wide shoulder pads? David.
Yeah. This issue is interesting because previously, we had always seen Greg LaRocque pencils and Mike DeCarlo inkers. And here for a while, we're going to see Greg LaRocque and Mike DeCarlo listed as artists. And those big wide shoulders are a DeCarlo thing. But I mean, it's not like LaRocque doesn't do them, but this really feels like there's more Mike DeCarlo influence, especially in the faces.
Yeah.
And the more exaggerated parts of the costume designs. And I feel like I'm not going to throw blame at anybody, but...
I'm not blaming anybody. I'm just saying I don't care for it. I know some people are like, oh, yeah, she's got really full hair. She uses pert and all that stuff. I'm just not...
This is a totally... But it's an of its time costume.
Oh, yeah. No, it totally is.
It's weird for the Legion. Because a lot of the time, you know, you'll see these... Well, I guess in the 70s when everybody was sexy, they were sexy.
Yeah. I mean, they definitely are keeping with the
costume straight out of '86.
Yeah, no, they're keeping definitely with the trends of the time where women were putting, shoulder pads in the suits to make them appear more masculine so that they could compete in a man's world. We're starting to break through the glass ceiling, all of these kinds of things. And so I'm glad that artists take what is around them and the changing shift in culture and incorporate that stuff into comic books. Don't get me wrong. I appreciate that. I just don't like this look. I don't think it's aesthetically pleasing in my mind, especially when you get around the bicep area and then all of a sudden you have to truncate everything in. It's like she's got these big round spheres, basketballs on her shoulders, and then these little spaghetti arms. It's just not very good. On the plus side, we don't have to worry about it very long because she is telling Invisible Kid 2 a story of the past And so she instantly jumps back to her old costume, which, again, is another
Terrible.
little great thing for them to do.
But her original costume.
Oh, yeah, her original
terrible.
costume is also terrible.
It has like a big bouffant and the pink cape, but the most interesting thing about the flashback when she starts talking is she actually starts talking to tell Invisible Kid a story about how she was not smart and not clever and not skilled. And it kind of feels like we're seeing a little bit more of that distance between Censor Girl, the haunted oracle, and Princess Projectra, because she's almost speaking of herself in the third person, talking about, oh, I was this crazy, stupid kid and I had this bouffant hair dial and I didn't know what I was doing. And I can't tell if it's meant to do that or if it's trying to humanize her, trying to treat Invisible Kid as, the newbie to the group, even though he's been in the team 6 years at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I think when it's like, if you're telling somebody, hey, I was kind of dumb. There was this one time when I did this. And, that's definitely third person. The other thing that I find really amazing about this issue is it has literally only been a few months since Karate Kid died.
26 issues, so a little over 2 years.
No, she says, it's, I'm back. Let's see if I can find it exactly.
I think Jacques actually says it's only been a few months. Yeah. On page 3, he says it's only been a few months since Karate Kid's death. So you figure 26 issues or a little over 2 years real time
is maybe like 2 or 3 months.
Could be.
Yeah, that's yeah. Maybe
months, he says.
Maybe go and mourn your dead husband a little bit more. Anyway, she's got to deliver a package, and things go haywire, and she has to call upon her friends, Pharaoh Lad and Invisible Kid, to come and help her out. And of course, Bouncing Boy is like, "That's right, everybody. We've got to be good teams with one another, and we must spy on each other constantly." Wink.
I don't know if I get that, but
I mean, that's the implication at the end of the issue when who is it? Is it Invisible Kid? No, Karate Kid.
Yeah.
And Invisible Kid is like, "Hey, by the way, I knew you guys could do it because I've been watching you." And they're like, "Oh, we're in the police state. I guess that's okay." Yeah. Anyway,
that is a really uncharitable read.
I mean, if I were to say, "Hey, Matthew, I realized that you were late to the recording today because I was watching you on your monitor," you would have a total freak out. You wouldn't sit there and go, "Oh, Steven cares about me that he's watching me all the time." You would be like, man. You'd be like, "This is wrong. You shouldn't be doing this kind of stuff. And if you knew we were in trouble, you should have come and helped." Isn't that what Bouncing Boy said back on page 9? That we're all there in it together. And now you're just saying that you're watching us on a monitor somewhere? I would be very irate. Anyway, they all get to use their powers. They're trying to find some secret files of RJ Brand that he's building something. And so they all get to use their powers a little bit. And then they get to go after a guy called Black Mace. And it's an interesting adventure. I do like the gimmick. The downside of doing these kinds of stories is that the fates of all of these people. That Pharaoh Lad is not going to die here. Karate Kid is not going to die here. Princess Projectra is not going to die here. And so a lot of the urgency, a lot of the fear that somebody is going to get injured, not even a concern. That's the only thing I have with these kinds of stories. I like the concept and idea, but at the same time, there's an issue.
I see the point, but I feel like with suspension of disbelief, I think we know that the characters aren't going to die anyway, and I feel like we don't know that because 2 of the characters in this adventure have died. Right. But I think there's more to a story than just, oh, well, we know they're not going to die. I don't know that, for me at least, that doesn't blunt the whole enjoyment of the story.
Oh, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that the concern of being these characters are in peril is not there. And so to me, the urgency is a lot less.
I don't know. I think when I go into, like, let's use Batman as an example. He's only died 7 times in 70 years. I don't necessarily go into a Batman story. Ra's al Ghul puts him in a death trap, and he's in the death
Oh
trap,
yeah,
and the
and it's
suspense
about
is,
how
will
is he
he
going to
get
get
out
out
in
of it?
time? Right, and then you have that moment of, oh, will he make it? Of course he'll make it. It's a Batman comic, and the New York Times didn't have a big piece on it, but I don't know. I can see that, but I actually really enjoy the way this issue plays with. I call it the Curse of 66 because 4 Legionnaires joined at once, and by the time this story comes around, one's a traitor, 2 are dead. The only one still living is literally haunted by her decisions. Lost her home, lost her husband, lost her planet. They have had a bad time of things. And, focusing on that is kind of interesting because then you get to say, oh,
I,
what terrible things are going to happen to her now?
I like how everyone gives Tom King a lot of crap because it's like
Mhm.
all this guy does is dwell on the tragedy and the trauma that superheroes go through. It's like, have you people read the Legion of Superheroes at all? Because that's
See,
all this is. Here is, we've seen Brainiac go a little mad because of what's been going on. We've seen characters who are making horrendous mistakes because of the trauma that they're not dealing with or talking it out with people. Even as you say here, we've got Princess Projectra, who is sitting there just, still darkened. And there's a great panel at the end of 14 where half her face is covered because she's like, oh, let me tell you about the dark times, about the time of the Sith. And then we get into that flashback and it's just like, oh no, she's definitely dealing with trauma and death. And there are things that as a story, they have not dealt with. And
yeah,
it's funny that you don't have people, maybe they were, cause I don't read the letter section. Maybe they don't have letter sections in these comics in the 1980s.
they do.
But the the fact that people aren't like, why do you got to traumatize these characters so much? It's like, these kids have been traumatized since day one.
I think the problem that I have with so many of the King stories is not the fact that the trauma is there and that they're hitting these people with it over and over. It's the fact that it's the only thing that's there. Like there was a recent issue, I won't mention the character, but it rhymes with Hunderflimmen, where literally the whole issue, the hero was chained up in a dungeon being tortured. That's the whole 32 pages of story. And I feel like this story is about these terrible things that have happened, but also you have these kids going, "Hey, yeah, we're going to be great Legionnaires. Look, we're kind of figuring it out now. One of us will be dead in 10 minutes, and another will die a couple years later, and then the last one will just be going, "Oh, invisible kid, such terrible things will happen to you in the future." But I can see your point, but I also feel like this story tries to say, and then they overcame it, or and then she's trying to do good even though that has happened. So I don't know. It's tough.
Yeah, no, I think the story is more about, hey, don't feel bad about asking people for help and making friends with the living. Because she runs into Invisible Kid 2 in the
Right.
Hall of Heroes. And
Where
so she's like, isn't this
he's
weird for you to
talking
come here?
to
You
his
don't know any of these people. And he's like, yeah, but I think it's nice.
and I can't decide because I really like the part where Jacques admits that he goes and talks to Lyle Norg sometimes. Like he
Well, he
stands in
has
the
met
Hall
him,
of the
right?
Dead and talks to Lyle Norg.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, literally, he hasn't met him, but he met a demon pretending to be him. But I also can't decide whether that is a really sweet moment in a world where we know that literal ghosts can exist, or whether it's incredibly silly because it's a world where we know that literal ghosts can exist. But either way, I kind of enjoy that, except that, again, he's not the newbie Legionnaire
No,
anymore.
not even close.
But he's still being treated in this issue. He's being treated like the newbie Legionnaire when literally there are 7 people who have joined since he did.
Yeah.
8.
Yeah. And maybe that's just because of her princess ways that she looks at everyone
And
as below her.
she does have tenure over pretty much everybody up to what, Ultra Boy, maybe? Yeah, I
Probably.
get it.
Yeah. So I don't know. She seems to talk down to him quite a bit, which is weird. Um,
She is a lot haughtier than she used to be. Yeah.
yeah. A couple other things I noticed from this issue. they use damn for the first time that I remember seeing in a Legion book. And this is supposed to be a quote unquote all ages comic book. So I was surprised that, by 1986, 87, you're letting the word damn come into your comics. And they use it a couple of times in the next issue as well. So we're only a few words from a few issues away from them dropping F-bombs left and right. It's a slippery slope, Matthew. The minute that you say damn, then you're letting all the kids use the bad languages.
R.J. Brand's catchphrase was "by damn."
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, do you remember when he?
I mean, I'm sure it is, but I'm just surprised because
and he was
R.J. Brand.
"Oh, by damn, son, I don't."
R.J. Brand is not a hero, and he is not a teenager, and he is not a character that the reader is supposed to quote unquote look up to. And so you do run into that risk of, oh, sure, R.J. Brand does it. Well, my dad curses too, but you don't see me just cursing left and right. So there's this really weird thing when a Legion member says damn, and when Grandpa Fartley over there says damn.
That now who says damn? It's a Kund that says damn.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gaharf.
Yeah, Gaharf surrenders to no child.
Gaharf. It really is fun. You have to say it like Goofy. Gaharf. But yes, Gaharf of the Kund. But I don't know. I feel like by 86, you're kind of getting to the point where, we will have F-bombs not too far down the line. Or in the Legion, we're going to
they're using a different version of it, but
we're going to get the fake curse words, the Grok and the Fragum and the Friggle.
Yeah. I kind of wish that would have started here instead of after the reboot.
I hated it. So
really?
I'm glad, I hate fake curse words.
But language changes.
In the context, it does, but in the context of this story, they're not talking about language changing. They're saying grok because they want to say the F word, but they don't quite have either the editorial, noblesse oblige to just do it, or they don't necessarily feel like their audience would be accepting of that. And I feel like if you can't say the word, you shouldn't imply the word. You know what I mean? It's like
I would disagree with you.
It's like when you have a sex scene where somebody's like, "Oh, they're kissing," then we pull away to the fireplace. I'm like, it kind of feels like if you can't talk about the sex scene under the Hays Code, why would you so strongly imply it? And I don't know. I've never liked the grok. I've never liked the sprock. I've never liked the fluby. The only person who can ever fake curse and make me believe it is Zaphod Beeblebrox, and I don't think he becomes a Legionnaire until after the 3-boot.
Yeah, it's not even part of this. One other thing that I noticed is they make use of these hologram. They use the word hologram, and I don't know about you, but I remember in the 80s, holograms were like the cool thing to have on your stickers and everything like that. Hologram's actually a word that came out in the 1940s. It took off in common language in the 1960s and peaked at 1977, although by 1977 to about 1982, it dropped off. But then by 86, and by 87, when this issue came out, it had rebounded to not be as high as it was in 77, but was still up there as far as a word in usage a lot. So I found that very interesting. But overall, I like the gimmick of what they're doing in this story. I thought the story overall was just kind of middle of the road for me.
It works best for me as kind of a presentation of the way Censor Girl views her past and views her past self. But there are a couple of things about it that make it just not work for me. Because at the end, Invisible Kid falls asleep. And we know from...
Because her story was so boring.
Invisible Kid falls asleep because Universo has just put the entirety of the world to sleep. Because in the last panel, Projectra also succumbs, and then next issue something happens. Literally, this is the point where Universo's plot kicks in, and it hit Jacques before her because she has either stronger constitution or had a better save roll, whatever.
She's not from Earth.
But they don't really call that out enough, with the exception of that last caption, "Across the world, everyone slept." That is I feel like it's too subtle. It doesn't feel like what it actually is.
Yeah. It definitely is, because the world doesn't go to sleep in the next issue. I mean,
But the next issue, we have people waking up from an unknown time of sleep. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But this is the point where Universal, boom, put her to sleep. And if you talked about the letters page, at the end of the letters page, there's actually a caption that calls it out and points out that since a girl has fallen asleep and she's going to wake up in a very different world, but the story does not convey that at all.
No,
it doesn't pull it off.
No.
If you enjoy the show, we would appreciate your support. You can find out more and become a Legion Clubhouse member at patreon.com/major spoilers.
After last episode, I got an email from Pete in North Carolina. He said, "Hey, Stephen, first time ever contacting you, I think. Been listening to you since about 2013 or so. The same week that a friend introduced me to your shows and website, he also introduced me to Scott Johnson and the TMS Frog Pants Syndicate. Been really great listening to you over the last decade. I'm going to hop on the Major Spoilers Patreon today and finally try to sign up. It won't be for a whole lot, but I'll give you what I can. Anyway, the reason I'm sending you this is because in the latest Legion Clubhouse episode released in May 30th, you made me laugh out loud alone harder than I ever have in months. Your quick comment about you and your wife and people's assumptions about her. And where are you from? Speaking up really loud. I died. Great line. I'm laughing again as I type this. Even told my wife about it when she called a few minutes ago. You killed me, and I just wanted to let you know. Thanks, man. Well, thank you, Pete, for letting us know that we brought a little happiness and sunshine into your life. And also, Pete did sign up to become a patron. He signed up for a full year.
Right.
And the cool thing is, dear listener, if you sign up for a full year in advance, you just pay the full year up. You're actually paying for like 11 months. You get 11 months, and then you get 1 month free, or maybe you get 10 months and 2 months free. I forget what the discount is, but you are getting free months when you sign up for the full year in advance. And Pete took advantage of that. So thank you again, Pete. And certainly we want more of you to jump on the Major Spoilers Patreon, because that money is really our only and main source of income. And that feeds the server costs that we have for majorspoilers.com. It feeds the hosting costs for our podcasts. It makes sure that our contributors get paid a little bit of money, not a whole lot, but a little bit of money for what they do. But costs are going up. I don't know if you've seen it. It is the economy, stupid. And our costs are going up as well. And I would hate for this show to end. I know Pete is just laughing from the last episode, but this is not a laughing matter. We want to make sure that this show continues far into the future. And so if you are out there and you enjoy the work that we put into this show, and you want to give a little bit back, value for value is what we call it, $5 a month. That's all we're asking. Sign up today at patreon.com/major spoilers.
Legion of Superheroes Volume 3, Number 32, Forgotten Heroes, published March 1987, written by Paul Levitz with art by Greg LaRocque, Mike DeCarlo, and Arne Starr. Synopsis: what is the Universo project?
We are now into the Universo project, which I'm big on this. I like this. Again, like I like the gimmick, I also like the idea of a big multi-part chapter where, it's not revealed to you at the end of the issue. They're telling you right on the cover, this is the Universo project chapter 1. Like, how many chapters is this going to go? We don't know, because maybe the writers don't know. But I do like this banner title here, where you've got the Universo project chapter 1, and it's Saturn Girl in there, and you just know that that's a nice piece of design work. If you were to ask me, what makes a good design, that's it. And then when we get into issue 33, we've got Chameleon Boy on the cover, and it's chapter 2, and it's, I think that is super, super well done from a design standpoint. So kudos to the people who were in charge of that. I also go ahead.
I always like to remark that wherever the Legion goes, the rest of the comics industry will follow in about 5 years. This is the first time that I recall ever seeing on the cover something called out like that. The limited series concept kind of started in 1980, but seeing like these little sub stories or sub chapters actually called out on the cover is kind of a new thing. Back in the old days, they didn't want anything on the cover that you would not put it on the stands for as long as possible. So they don't want anything to feel dated.
Yeah, if
they
you
don't want it to feel like,
you know,
oh, this is chapter 1, but there's chapter 3.
yeah.
So this is a thing that's intentionally saying, we know you're a collector. We know that the collectors are going to want all the chapters. We're not going to tell you how many. But yeah, I feel like that's an interesting sort of thing. And by the end of the 80s, everybody will be doing it on the covers. You know, you'll see Captain America's
Superman,
chicken salad sandwich.
Superman Family does that, so you know which order you're supposed to read. Action Comics, Superman, Supergirl, and what was the fourth? What was
Man of Tomorrow?
Man of Tomorrow, yeah.
It was Action Comics, Superman, Adventures of Superman, and Superman, Man of Steel.
Which one?
And then Man of Tomorrow came out 4 times a year.
Oh, okay. I thought there was one that was just a Supergirl comic that was also part of that Superman family, and they had the Superman shield with the numbering on there, so you know which order to read them in. It doesn't matter. It's, you know,
Supergirl did have a 4-issue mini, and I think it did get shielded because it fell within the continuity.
Okay.
But it wasn't like an ongoing book at the time.
Not that stupid Matrix series, probably.
It was Matrix, but it was 4 issues, and then the Linda Lee Supergirl got a book in 90. I'm going to say 4.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyway, this chapter of the Universo project starts out just like a D&D campaign, where you wake up in a jail cell and you have no memory of how you got there or what's going on. And then we find out that the Legion HQ has been shut down. We find out that Saturn Girl's on another planet. She recognizes people like Dream Girl and Brainiac 5 and Chameleon Boy, and none of them recognize her or know what's going on. They're all just like, we must go work in the fields. The fields are good. Have we collected enough water? And so it really becomes this big puzzle of how is Saturn Girl going to get out of here, especially when she's not even a member of the Legion at this point.
She's not, she is not an active member, but whatever this community is, and she does mention seeing other heroes. She says she sees Gas Girl of the Legion, or the LaRocque heroes. And she recognizes a particular Green Lantern, the Zudarian Green Lantern from Legion 297.
But it's not Tomar Ray, but she does mention. But so if people are wondering who the Green Lantern from Zudar is, it is Tomar Ray is who that is.
Right.
So,
well, this is the thing. Tomar Ray died, but he was replaced by Tomar 2.
Yeah.
And here's the thing. Everybody on Zudar, their name is just an anagram
of Ray.
Because Tomar 2 died, but there's an evil Yellow Lantern named Romat Rue. And then, of course, a young Zudarian rookie lantern named Somar Lee. And
wait a minute. Are they harvesting black mercies or whatever what do you get for the Man of Tomorrow?
I don't think so, but they do kind of look like it.
I just noticed that. I was like, wait a minute. That would go along with the Universo's thing, right?
This is not very detailed art.
No,
it would. The Black Mercy. Ugh.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I'm so
Black
mad. This issue could have been so great.
It's not bad, except that there is a lot of, there are some things that are bad. Spy Eyes. I think that's the dumbest name for a probe droid. It's just so dumb.
Goofy.
I like the background. You know, you can tell that they're really working in layers to create this force field on the planet or wherever that they're in. I like that Saturn Girl is alone and she is trying to figure out the problem, and she does everything that she can to break through the mental blocks that have been put on her. And I really like those elements of the story. I even like when she finally is able to break through, and then she needs to work through each of her teammates, Dream Girl, Brainiac 5, and Chameleon Boy, to get them to unlock as well. The problem that I have with that dream sequence, with Dream Girl and Brainiac 5 and Chameleon Boy, is they had a chance to really do some radically different art. And yes, each person's dream that she goes into is different, but I was expecting a completely different art style. Like in Dream Girls, it's like a maze, like one of those
MC Escher
an Escher drawing, right? But they should have made it look more like an MC Escher drawing. And when they finally get into Brainiac's dream, I was expecting it to be more robotic, and it kind of goes there, but then it doesn't. And then when you get into Chameleon
Yeah.
Boy, it's like, yeah, there's a lot of cells, but again, they could have gone in so many different directions.
They
Although
could have gone crazy with this.
they could
and
have.
It's so disappointing to see what, LaRocque and DeCarlo do. I do like parts of it. I do like the
Mhm.
fact that they put all of them inside of a mental block,
Yeah.
and Dream Girl, being Dream Girl, refashions it into a great big ruby around her because, fashion.
Yeah.
I thought that was kind of nice, and I really did like the point where you can see all of the cables and the circuits, but you keep seeing these little bubbles of things
Mhm.
that are important to Brainiac. Because
Mhm.
there's like, you see Lyle Norg, and you see his best friend Rond in what looks like a hospital gown, and you see someone who may be a Brainiac, but most importantly, you see Projectra, that he had that big relationship tease with a couple of issues ago. And I'm like, huh, interesting. So are the bubbles his emotions, like bubbling around in the circuitry? But can you imagine if Bill Sienkiewicz
Yeah.
had
Right.
done, right?
Exactly.
Or just crazy stuff. I really wish that
I kind of
we
wish they
would
would
have
have had
had
another
somebody.
artist for each one of these pages.
Honestly, and I'm going to say this, and it's going to sound mean and catty. I wish they'd had another artist for the whole issue,
Oh,
because
probably.
this is unequivocally one of my favorite Legion stories ever, and for a couple of reasons, I'm not looking forward to doing it. One of them is it's Dream Girl heavy, and I don't want to listen to you talk like Tangina for the next 4 weeks.
Oh, no,
This
it'll only have to be
house
for one
is
episode. So.
clean.
Yeah.
Well, it's 4 issues long, so it's going to be
Oh,
this
okay.
episode,
Oh,
then
yeah,
the
yeah.
next episode, and then it's going to bleed
Hey,
into the
Shug,
next.
let me tell you about the Universo project.
I am logging off.
You know what's really cool about the Chameleon Boy page, though? If you look at it, the big thing right now on Instagram, people are like, hey, look at this, squint your eyes and look at this picture, and you're supposed to see Jesus, or you're supposed to see Kenny Loggins or somebody. They're the same
I
guy.
always see Jim Morrison.
But if you look at the Chameleon Boy page, it's like you're looking at a praying mantis.
Oh.
And that's kind of creepy. I mean, it's really creepy, right?
I don't see that, but it may be one of those things.
So look at and you are colorblind too, but if you look at the purple cells and the red cells, the purple cells form this giant head and body of the praying mantis, and then the four suns are kind of like the mouth, and then the little bit of the cell that's covering the red of the setting sun makes it look like the pinchers on the praying mantis's face, which tells you a lot about Brainiac, or I'm sorry, about Chameleon Boy's the fact that he is really an alien, right?
He really is. And as weird as that is, it almost feels like a cop-out, because we've seen that Reap Daggle is a real weirdo.
Yeah.
And he is really, really like incredibly
that would have been great to have like a Steve Ditko do this page.
Oh, just have somebody go nuts. Can you imagine if somebody was just like crazy go nuts? You get Mike Mignola, because he's active in 86.
Yeah.
You get Mike Mignola on this, but it is interesting that in the midst of all of this is this little cube in which you see his standard form.
Mm-hmm.
But does he see himself as that standard form?
I think,
or has he just memorized that as the form that he takes?
That may be his default form. The one that he identifies with.
Right, the one that he wants everybody to see him as.
Yeah.
But it could be really interesting, because we saw a little bit in Dream Girl's world where she saw Starboy through Dream Girl's eyes, but it seemed like he
was constantly phasing and shifting. Yeah, where she has a different take on him. They have a complicated relationship.
Time differently.
Yeah,
and it could have been so crazy. Such a lost opportunity.
Yeah, that's it. But we do get Universo revealing that he's the one behind this, and he is control of the president of the United Planets, and we get all of this stuff, and that's just
it's a big surprise. They've been teasing it for a year.
I know, right? But for the most part, it's not a bad issue. I do like that we get a focus on one single Legion member and her ability to overcome and show why she was good enough to be one of the founders. I do like that.
Yes. I like the fact that we see her later on. They nickname her, and it may not be canonical, but she has a nickname in Volume 4. They call her Iron Butt Imra.
Yeah.
Because nobody can break Imra's resolve. She's just unstoppable. And I love the fact that this story opens with her breaking free of the hypnosis without even knowing it. Saturn Girl's mind is so powerful that she broke out of Universo's mind control, like absolutely just unconsciously. And
but she did say,
I love Universo as an evil villain.
Yeah.
But of all of his genius powers, creativity ain't here, because this is just another super Stalag of space.
Yeah. No, it totally is. The one thing
this time he remembered to kill his son first. So
the one thing that we should point out, though, is that Saturn Girl, when she's in Brainiac's brain, is like, oh no, he would be breaking out in a few days anyway. His brain is running the numbers, and he would be smart enough to break out of this anyway. So yeah.
Yes. Dream Girl was like a little bit out, but she's like, Brainiac would literally, with no training, his mind would come out. But do you see, when Brainiac comes out, he's just absolutely panicked. Someone's been in my mind.
Oh, yeah.
Someone has been in my mind. And it's that moment again where you see the emotions of the man Quirrell Dox against that computer brain. And I really love those moments because it reminds us, again, this is a man prone to emotional breakdown, mental illness, when his logic and his emotions don't work together. It's a really nice moment, and it reminds us that even somebody like Brainiac has his weaknesses. He has his human moments, or his Coluan moments.
Yeah. So overall, it's a pretty good issue. I think it's a good way to kick off this big arc, and I want to see where it goes. So I was all right with it.
I was too. This is one of my rave issues from cover to cover, even with my complaints about the art. And this is something else. You know how necks go? You know, right? How
with gas?
Goes? No, you like a neck. You have
a
head,
neck.
Right?
I thought you were talking about some new model of a car.
You know how your neck goes, right?
Yeah. It goes off to the wonky side. Yeah. Sure,
yeah. Your head. Okay. Mike DeCarlo doesn't.
Yeah, no, there's the problems. And yeah. We'll be talking about some more 70s and 80s art here very shortly. But yeah, there's definitely some things that could have been done differently. So
yeah. Good issue.
That wraps it up for this installment of the Legion Clubhouse. Matthew, what did we learn this week?
We learned that the Hall of Heroes is getting pretty crowded, and all them dead Legionnaires are kind of creeping me out.
I think we learned that it's only been a few months since Karate Kid died, and Princess Projectra is back in the saddle. Woof. Okay.
And we've also learned that when you're falling 30 feet towards the ground, and you're caught by a man made of metal, that's somehow better.
Thanks again, everybody, for checking us out this time. If you enjoyed it, please give us a like. Go over and check out our Patreon page, patreon.com/Major Spoilers. And until next time, I'm Tomar Me.
And I'm Egyptian-themed superhero Pharaoh Lad.
The Legion Clubhouse is a production of Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC, and is produced by Steven Schleicher. Your hosts were Matthew Peterson and Steven Schleicher. You can follow Matthew at Mighty King Cobra and Steven at Major Spoilers. You can follow this podcast on Twitter at Legion Clubhouse. If you have questions or comments, send them to podcast@majorspoilers.com. I'm Jason Inman. Until next time, eat it, Grandpa.
This podcast is copyright 2024 by Major Spoilers Entertainment, LLC.